Hello, everyone.
Hello.
This is me and the captain again.
It's been a while.
Reading Chapter 5 of Silent Ponyville.
Whoa, out of this world.
Yes, it is.
I have a snow globe.
Or,
just letting everybody
yes,
know.
he
I
does.
have a friggin' snow globe with 2011 on it. I own the world now. Alright, let's get started.
Alright. Groan escaped Pinky's lips. That had not been a restful sleep by any stretch of the imagination. She rubbed her throbbing head as she began to stand
Her
up.
body was racked with... What? You're gonna have to read, because apparently my Google Chrome... Seriously. Google Chrome.
Oh.
Seriously. What?
Her body was racked with aches the moment she tried. She laid back down and took several deep breaths, her senses being hit with the overwhelming stench of decay. She pulled her head away from the ground, coughing as the stench tried to gag her. Her eyes shot open as she tried to look around. However, it was far too dark for her to be able to see anything. Is Chrome back up yet?
Come on.
Okay. She fumbled around in her backpack, reaching for a lantern before pulling it out and turning it on. The floor she sat on was a mess of rotting wood and grime. The normal, pristine floors of Sugar Cube Corner had become one with the other world now. She lifted her head up to look around, seeing the walls and furniture were also rotting away. Bodies of ponies hung from the corners of the room. Bad confectionaries were placed on various counters.
Everything's working. Pinky quickly turned her head away, closing her eyes in inches. She had seen so much of it already. This still isn't any easier to see it. She kind of wished that waking up would have made this whole place go away, as if it was a bad dream.
At least I wasn't attacked by a monster, she groaned as she began to stand up onto her wobbly feet. She looked down at the blood-soaked bandages that covered her legs.
Related, and you were each clapping from hoof and by fluff. As if you killed one of you.
Is that suicide or homicide?
Technically, you killed yourself. You're still alive.
I don't know. Yeah. Pang of guilt coursed through her. She hadn't wanted to kill her, but in her state of self-defense, she hadn't been given any other option. If only this town hadn't worked everything. If only things went back to the way they were.
Reached her mind. She looked down Sugar Cube Corner more. Before looking down her feet, with the ground or the floor. Sugar Corner didn't look this way when I came in. She said aloud as she began to realize what was happening around her, which means, oh no, that siren didn't go off until in this other world. Mickey began to panic as realization hit.
No, calm down, Pinky, Pinky said, sitting herself down and taking in deep breaths. If you panic, then nothing good will happen. She shook her head before gently tapping it with her hooves. Stay calm, stay calm.
I'm not staying calm.
Just think.
Her beat began to slow down as she managed to rationalize herself.
Okay, first things first, she said as she looked at her legs. I need to change these bandages. She reached into her bag and grabbed the bandages. She put it in there from before. She quickly unwrapped her wounds, inspecting each of them to make sure they were healing properly before reapplying fresh bandages. She used up the last of her gauze, but she felt satisfied
It'd
with
probably
the
be
fresh
better
wrappings.
if I had some disinfectant, but I gotta work with what I have, she sighed softly. So, now what? She asked herself, as she reached into her backpack and pulled out a map. She unfurled it to try to see where she was going.
She gasped in shock. The map was blank now. The entire map only consisted of one word. Nowhere? I'm not anywhere? She asked herself, confused. She pressed against the map, looking for any clues as what happened to the old one. But there were no clues to be had. Letting out a defeated sigh, she placed the map bag into her bag.
The map bag into her bag.
Yeah, it actually says
A bag in a bag. Who would thunk? I guess I should get a look at my surroundings before I decide where to go next. She softly gulped down a bit of anxiety. She wasn't sure what to expect outside now the siren had turned the world back to normal.
Alright, you've been through a lot already, Pinky. You can handle this. She softly motivated herself as she gripped the lantern in her mouth. Standing up, she headed to the door and softly pushed it
Walking
open,
out of the store,
expecting a
you saw how
blast of cold
Ponyville
air.
had been cooned in the other world. The entire street paved and rotting floor, littered with holes that showed the metal framing that held it together in this pit. The houses had mutated into decrepit, rust-colored shacks that were falling apart at the seams. And the fog still only illuminated part of the town, but... Oh God, get out of my... But now was as black as the sky. The only light that penetrated the area was that which came from her lantern.
She carefully looked around before stepping down from the front steps of the shop. She didn't have any idea of where she should head first. The other version of herself hadn't dropped any clues, and if she had, she didn't want to
Nobody
go back
likes
to
HP
find
support
it.
assistant. Suddenly, a loud thud hit her ears as the ground shook slightly. She looked around at the ground carefully, as another tremor passed through, a few pebbles shaking at her hooves. Pinky's heart began to race. She had no idea what this meant, but it couldn't be anything good. She looked around, trying to find the source of the rumbling.
It must be T-Rex. Came the groan of a monster Pinky had become familiar with. She quickly turned her head in that direction as her phonograph began to pick up the sound of static. Coming slowly out of the darkness was the groaner, hobbling its way slowly towards her.
I just came up with something, but I'm not sure I want to say it.
What, is it that inappropriate,
Yeah. I'll keep it. There's no way he's the source. The thoughts ran through Pinky's head for a moment, when suddenly she was deafened by a loud roar that cut through the foggy air. The rumbling picked up its speed as its source was now running. Pinky took a few steps away from the groaner, not sure what she should do.
The groaner groaned as it tried to move faster. Pinky couldn't help but notice that it looked as if it was trying to escape. But escape from what? Is he trying to say run there?
The groaner let out a final cry of pain, as from the darkness a massive mouth appeared, biting into the creature. Taking it in one bite, it swiveled its head back up before chomping the groaner in a single bite. Pinky stared in shock at the giant monster before her.
It was a single body, a large mouth at its front, with no eyes. Skin was curved and pink, running straight back, large muscular legs that held its entire frame up. It was as if someone had taken off a pony's head and neck and put a giant mouth at its body. Stood as tall as a dragon.
Maybe it was a dragon. It let out another roar.
Pink dragon.
It let out another roar that knocked Pinky back to her senses. It had finally finished its meal and it was looking for its next one.
Pinky turned on her heels and ran with all her might. The creature let out a roar as it began to chase. Every stomp of its leg shook the ground under her hooves.
Her heart was pounding as she tried her best to run. She constantly felt her hooves about to slip from the shaking ground as she panted like crazy, rushing air to her lungs.
She felt and heard a massive thud behind her. She looked over her shoulder and saw the creature had tried to bite down on her, head crashing into the floor. Quickly pulled its head back out, letting out a pained roar as it began running again.
She watched it.
I know the solution.
What?
Hug it.
Yes. She watched it run, its loud, thudding feet doing its best to keep up with her. However, it was slower than her, and she knew it. This thing wasn't nearly as fast as the last thing that chased her before. Confidence built up inside of her. Yeah! She turned to face the road ahead of her.
She made a quick turn, noticing the path ended before her. She ran quickly, looking behind her, as she saw the creature run straight into the building, letting out another pained roar.
Don't you just hate it when you're chasing somebody and they crush you into the building?
Yeah.
I can do this. I can outrun this thing, she thought to herself as she felt her confidence skyrocket. She didn't know what it was, but she could outrun it.
She looked ahead of her and saw the rotting town pass her by with every hoofstep.
But where do I outrun it to? She asked herself, not sure of that answer.
I know. You use it to bridge that, valley.
No way.
She heard it let out another roar as the tremors under her legs began once again. It was coming after her again, but it didn't seem too bright. It was a thing to be feared. It could eat her if she wasn't careful, but she could get away from it.
She quickly made a turn around another bend, increasing her distance from the creature.
Her attention was caught by what she saw in the distance. It looked as if a giant gate of metal bars had been erected in the middle of the world, cutting off one half of the road from the other. As she ran towards it, she could tell it stretched up into the sky, but couldn't see where it ended.
Erected. She looked behind her. The pink monster was slowly starting to catch up as it meshed its jaw and roared for her blood.
She looked back at the gate, seeing a normal-sized door open in it for her to fit through. She kicked herself into high gear and charged straight for the door.
She slipped through with ease and quickly slammed it shut behind her. She stared through the metal bars at the creature running straight for the gate. She panted and watched it charge with all its might straight forward.
I am half expecting the gate to, open up, the large one, for it to go through.
It's like, I'm here.
Crashed loudly against the gate, letting out a wild roar as it came to an abrupt stop. The gate was strong enough to hold it back. It let out another roar as it stepped backwards, rushing straight into the gate again. The bars bent slightly, but held strong. Pinky stood there, amazed, watching the creature fight with all its strength to break through the bars, roaring and hollering as it slammed its head repeatedly against the bars.
A loud cracking sound echoed through the area as the creature stopped its thrashing. It let out grunts as it tried to figure out what the sound meant before it crashed its head once more into the gate.
Wait, so it was figuring out what the cracking meant. Probably its skull, and then it crashes its head again.
What can I say, man?
The loud crack sounded again, and the large creature found its hind leg through the floor. It began to let out frantic roars as it thrashed around, trying to get its foot free. The ground below it cracked and gave way, the creature roaring as it clawed at the metal gate for support. Its giant form soon fell through the ground, its loud roar disappearing into the dark sky as it fell into the bottomless pit.
A gate is only so strong as the ground beneath it. Pinky slowly walked towards the area where he had crashed into the gate, peeking her head down towards the bottomless pit. Why would you look down a bottomless pit? It's bottomless. The creature had fallen. It was nowhere to be seen or heard any more. The ground it had stood on continued to crumble away, spread out towards the town. The whole town was slowly falling into the bottomless pit. Oh no! As if the only place left in the whole town was this area behind the metal gate.
That metal gate must have a great root system. Pinky stared at the crumbling town in shock that it truly was crumbling away, yet it almost made her a little happy. The place that had caused her so much torment was slowly vanishing before her eyes. It had left her stranded there, but it was going away.
She turned her back from the crumbling town to get a look at where she currently was before letting out another surprised gasp. She hadn't noticed what was actually behind the gate since she had been too focused on running.
The dirt before her was littered with rocks of all sizes, spread as far as the eye could see. In the center of all the rocks was a wooden house, small but quaint, with a moderate windmill. It was the farm, the place she had lived and grown when she was a foal.
The farm? It's not supposed to be this close to Ponyville, she thought as she began to run towards it. Its familiarity and comfort was calling for her.
That must have been what the fissure was doing. It was bending space, so now the 2 points are right next to each other.
Whoa.
Of course that's not how it works, but yeah. The image of a ghost-like filly appeared before the front door as she ran closer to the house. The little filly ran forward, going through the door to the house. Pinky had followed it.
She quickly reached the front door, opening it and going inside.
Inside, in the living room, was the ghostly image of her younger sister, Bellamina, stood there, looking at her.
Bellamina, she called out, dropping the lantern
The music
from her mouth. It hit the ground with a clang, rolling over to the young ghost filly, who stopped it with her hoof.
I'm surprised you made it all the way here, Pinkamina. Bellamina sat the lantern right side up. I guess I was wrong. I guess you can handle the truth.
Bellamina, you're... Pinky started, but stopped herself as she looked to her sister. You're not really here, are you? She said, her cheerfulness dipping as she could see through the ghostly image of her sister.
You'll see the truth here. Bellamina turned and pointed directing Pinky to the stairs to the upper floor. This house is your last safe haven, though. After this, there is no turning back, her younger sister said ominously.
What do you mean?
Goodbye, sis. Bellamina's last words echoed as her image faded from the living room.
Pinky could only stare at where her sister had stood, not sure what to make of what she saw. She felt a pang of sadness and yet a bit of comfort as well. It was a short, brief, and it didn't last long, and she had wished it could have, but...
She had talked with her sister.
She walked over to the lantern and picked it up once more with her mouth. She couldn't stop here, but not now. Her sister's last words gave her a boost of strength. a boost that she could use to see this through. As she looked at the stairs her sister had pointed to, they led to the bedrooms on the second floor.
The truth. I guess it's time to find out what that means, she thought to herself as she took the careful steps up to her destiny.
At the top of the stairs, she was met by a wooden door. She carefully pushed it open, revealing a hallway. On the sides of the hallway were 4 square holes, with writing below them. At the end of the hallway was another wooden door. She stepped into the hallway, when suddenly the wood door snapped closed behind her. She quickly looked at the door, trying the handle, only to find it locked.
She let out a soft sigh as she turned back to the hallway, before almost jumping out of her skin again. The slender pony stood at the end of the hallway, right outside the door on the other side. Her heart started beating in her throat as she stepped back against the door that had locked closed behind her.
However, the slender pony turned around and seemed to phase through the door, as if telling her he was waiting for her on the other side.
She took a deep breath as she tried to calm her beating heart. The very sight of the creature was instilling fear into her.
She shook her head as she calmed down.
My sister said that the truth was here. I have faith in her. Pinky carefully got back on her hooves, stepping forward slowly. She said I was ready for it. I've managed to come through this far, though, hell and back. This far through hell and back. I can handle this. She took a deep breath as she turned to the first hole in the wall, reading the words written under it.
Hold on. Eyes gleamed over. It stalks before striking. Its tail wags in anticipation.
So it's a cute dog.
Puppy!
Pinky thought it over in her head. The square-shaped hole was just the right size for her to place in one of the tiles she had gotten from Sugar Cube Corner. She assumed the riddle meant that she had to put one of them in the slot.
She carefully looked inside her bag and went over to the selection she had: a bird, a snake, a cat, and a fish.
Well, fishes do wag their tail in anticipation.
A snake, maybe. No.
Must be a bird.
Yes, it's a bird.
With those gleaming eyes.
And it wags its tail.
Just stalking along like... Boom, 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 boom. Never flying.
No.
This riddle refers to the cat tile, doesn't it? Nah, it doesn't.
Bro.
She asked herself, thinking the clue over. She carefully grabbed the tile and gently placed it into the hole in the wall.
The tile began to glow white, spreading out from the hole it was in. Pinky took a step back and watched the plate spread out into an area the size of the door before her. The light soon faded away, revealing the door in its place.
She carefully opened the door, looking inside. It was a single room, almost like a closet. 4 solid walls with no description to them. Yet she felt compelled to go inside. She walked into the dark room, closing the door behind her.
Suddenly, the flame on her lantern went out on its own. As she reached up and tried to relight it, the room was filled with light. Projected on the walls were images. Pinky instantly recognized them as memories.
I don't know, Pinkamena. Are you sure this is a good idea? Ballmena asked as she walked with her bouncing older sister towards the edge of the rock farm.
Of course it is, Pinky said happily as she led her younger sister. It's a super special party. I tried to invite Mother and Father and Octavia, but they were all too busy, so that means you get to enjoy the fun with me.
Well, I do love your parties, Ballmena smiled. It was true, that she did. The two of them reached the edge of the forest.
We're here, Pinkamena called out happily.
Who are you talking to? Ballmena asked, confused.
Why, the party host, of course, she giggled happily. Bellmena looked confused, but the confusion didn't last for long. From the forest walked a tall colt. His coat was pale and dull gray. His mane was unkempt and was curled into a mess of brown. He didn't look like he had gone or had a good bath in at least a week. And most odd of all was his cutie mark, was that of 3 dark red balloons.
"Hello, Pinkamena. I see you brought a friend," the old colt said, with a smile. His voice sent shivers down Bellamina's back.
"See? He's the party host. He's going to throw a super wonderful duper fantastic party." Pinky bounced over to his side and pointed at his cutie mark. "And see? We both have similar cutie marks. That means he's going to throw us the best party ever." Pinky was very excited.
"Oh, of course. I always throw the best parties." The colt let out a soft, deep chuckle.
Really, Bellamina?" asked, a little unsure, but if her sister believed in this guy, then he must be all right. Besides, they were going to a party, and parties were always fun.
"Come, the party is this way." The colt smiled as he turned and walked back into the forest.
"Rapist." "Yes, party time." Pinky bounced happily after the colt. Bellamina followed slowly after the two.
The flame of the lantern flickered back to life as the images faded from the walls. Pinky stared at the walls that had shown the images she had long since forced herself to forget about. She didn't like where this was going. Back then, she was too ignorant to realize that the colt gave off a bad vibe. She was too focused on parties!
She gulped heavily as she opened the door back up and re-entered the hallway. She looked at the hole before her with the text written under it.
"Sleek and smooth, striking at its prey. Its tail lets it move.
Bird."
Obviously, a bird.
Bird.
Not a fish,
No.
and not a snake. Definitely a bird.
Bird. The image of a snake came... What? You're getting all these wrong. Came to her mind. A bad feeling ran through her as she carefully pulled out the tile with the bird on it, placing it carefully into the slot. The light turned the area of the door just as the previous one had.
She hesitantly walked into the room, trying to prepare herself for whatever it was she was about to witness. The light of her lantern faded away.
What are you doing to my sister?" Young Pinkamena cried from behind the bars of a steel cage. The colt had locked her inside under the guise that they'd been playing pin the tail on the pony.
"Wanna play pin the tail on the pony? You get to be the pony, and down here is the tail."
No. The bird is the tail.
"Ah, my bad." "Don't look so sad, little filly," the colt said, with a dazed-over smile. Pinkamena looked into his eyes and saw nothing. It was as if the colt truly had no soul to him. "I'm just about to play one of the most wonderful games with your sister."
"She doesn't look like she's having fun," Pinkamena cried out, looking at her sister who was strapped down to a table. She was frantic, trying to pry herself free from her bonds. The straps were too tight. She could do little more than twitch various parts of her body. She knew what he knew what he was doing.
No, he knew what he was doing.
No.
He's a professional.
Oh.
Professional party maker.
Continue.
"Oh, she may not look like it now, but I played this game with lots of ponies before. Just look around you. I had many friends over the years." A wry smile came to his face before he turned his back to her.
Pinkamena looked around the room. It was the first time she paid any attention to it, of course. Suddenly, the horrifying stench of the room was obvious. It was coming from various states of decay of the ponies that adorned the rooms. Most were young fillies, with little more than their heads remaining as decorations. The cult had dressed the room up for a party using the bones and skin of ponies he had killed.
"No, stop, please," came the hysterical cries from her sister. Pinkamena's attention instantly snapped back to what was happening before.
That's right. Make the noise. It's what I long for. The colt laughed as Pinkamena watched as he carefully placed the scalpel against her skin. With precision, he began to cut away at her.
Is it strange that I was imagining she would look over and see him, like, tickling her with a feather?
I got you now. Oh, you thought I was killer. I got you. I got you now.
The scream of her younger sister echoed around the room as the image faded. The flame came to life, illuminating the dark room once more.
Tears streamed down Pinky's face like they'd never fell before.
Bellamina! She sobbed. Bellamina!
The musical.
She sobbed to herself as she remembered the horrific images of her sister being dissected alive by the cult. She had tossed the memory aside a long time ago, a memory that had been too horrific for her to want to remember. Her precious sister had become nothing more than a plaything for that cult.
She hiccupped.
Bound chicken wow.
What? Yeah. She hiccuped.
Bound chicka wow wow, I said.
She hiccuped. Of course. She hiccuped as she gasped for a breath between her sobs. Bellamina. She still had 2 tiles left to go. She had more memories to remember. Whoa. She had to remember everything that she remembered before the memories remembered the remembering that had happened, for the sake of her sister.
Did she sort that all out?
Yeah.
Okay. It took her a long time to leave that room because she was sorting that all out in her head. Very quietly closing the door behind her, she had to see everything first. See it all before she could say anything. She very quietly walked to the next station of the wall and read the text between the square holes.
Soft to the touch, it soars over the fears. Its tail stabilizes. The fish!
Nah, not
Friggin'
the
fish.
Probably the cat.
No, the snake.
Yeah, maybe.
Wait, didn't we already use the
Maybe
snake?
you have to use one for 2 of them.
Yeah.
Pinky quickly took the tile with the bird on it,
Lame.
placed it into the hole. The door appeared just as it had with the others. She walked inside, staring at the wall, as the light once again faded from her lantern.
Come now, you must eat. There is no point in letting yourself go hungry. The colt chuckled to himself. His cold, harsh, cutting laugh. Pinkamena had curled up in the back of the cage, having cried her heart out. That sounds dangerous. All that remained of her sister now was a lifeless upper half that still was strapped to the table. She hadn't seen what he'd done with the rest of her after he'd finished.
Here, I even made you this special treat, he said, opening a small hole in the cage, pushing a plate with a cupcake on it. Pinkamena didn't want his treat. Nothing made by this cruel colt could truly be worth eating.
I'm curious if this is referencing to a different fan fiction. I don't
Probably
know which
not.
one, though. Yeah,
Cupcakes, so sweet and hasty cupcakes. Don't be too hasty, cupcakes.
I'm gonna kill you all. Cupcakes. Her stomach let out a growl. She hadn't eaten since breakfast and had been hoping to stuff her face with a feast from the party.
See? You're hungry. You should eat. The goat smiled.
Pinky's body defied her mind as it slowly got up and walked over to the cupcake. She sniffed the cupcake carefully, trying to get a high, but it was hard to smell anything past the stench of decay in the room. She then, very carefully, licked the frosting that lay on top of the cupcake. The sweet, sugary taste hit her tongue, almost as if in defiance of what her mind was telling her. Her mind screamed that something was wrong.
She very carefully opened her mouth and took a bite out of the cupcake.
Good, I'm so glad you're eating, man. I'm so glad. It would be a shame if your sister went to waste. The goat chuckled ominously.
The flavor of the cupcake hit Pink Mina's sense like a brick. This wasn't a sweet and sugary cupcake. It was salty and chewy, almost as if the main ingredient had been...
The colt laughed. As he watched the expression of the young filly's face distort, Pinkamena vomited, rushing back to the back of the cage, where she coughed and sputtered, trying to get the vial from her mouth. The imposing laugh from the colt hit her ears, causing her tears to return.
Sorry. A loud crash was heard from the top of the staircase leading to this basement. The colt looked up surprised, his eyes widening. He suddenly tried to open the cage like a mad beast, as if he absolutely had to reach Pink Mina. He managed to open it as he began to reach a hoof inside, when he was suddenly tackled by another large figure.
There was a loud yelling as if there was a fight going on. Another large figure appeared before the cage, reaching and trying to grab Pinkamena.
No, no, Pinkamena cried out as she tried to resist the figure pulling her out of the cage.
It's okay. Don't be afraid. That evil colt can't hurt you anymore. The voice that came...
He was a nice man!
The voice that came from the figure was comforting, reassuring. It was nothing like the one of the colts.
Pinkamena's, not plural, singular, Pinkamena looked up fearfully.
The Pinkamenas looked up.
As it pulled her out of the cage, holding her in one of his legs. The colt had a white coat with striking red hair. He wore a blue uniform, adorned with a blue hat.
It's okay. We're the good guys. We've come to take you home, he said with a smile as he moved quickly to get her out of the basement.
I was rescued, she remembered, as the light came back, but it had been too late. They didn't make it in time to save my sister. Pinky shook her head. And that vile treat. Even the thought of the cupcake was making her stomach turn. It's hard to believe any pony could be that kind.
Yes.
Oh, wait. I mean cruel.
No.
My bad.
She walked back into the hallway as the thoughts continued to bounce through her head. Those words I spoke in another memory make sense now, though. After having eaten that, I really don't feel like eating ever again.
She looked up at the last hole in the wall. The words underneath it read,
a slick texture. It's sustenance for most. Its tail propels it forward. The cat.
So, it's slick.
Cats are slick.
What's slick? It's a water dog.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Nailed it.
Pinky What?
Nailed it.
Pinky carefully pulled out the last tile. The picture of a water dog on it.
She threw out the fish.
Placed it. What?
She threw out the fish. It was useless.
Yeah. Fish! Oh, is that a tile of a water dog? Nice. And placed it in the hole. She carefully wiped away a few tears forming in her eyes as the door appeared. She carefully walked through it, seeing what the last of her hidden memories had to offer.
Pinkamena sobbed into Octavia's coat. The older sister had been doing her best to comfort her younger sister, but no matter what she tried, she couldn't get the filly to sleep.
Pinkamena had barely eaten. She refused to sleep, and she constantly was sobbing. Octavia had no idea what it was that her sister had seen. All she knew was the Bellmina. Wow, she's that important. She's the Bellmina now. The Bellmina was dead. That fact alone seemed to have Pinkamena jumping at the shadows.
"Oh my, I hear you're crying," came a soft, soothing voice.
"Grammy Pie," Octavia said, surprised, looking up to see her grandmother walking into the dark room, carrying a lantern.
Grammy? Pinkamena sniffed as she saw her grandmother.
"It's me, child," she smiled warmly as she walked closer, placing the lantern on the nightstand, then nuzzling the crying filly. "What troubles you?" The sound of her gentle voice seemed to soothe something deep in the filly's soul. Pinkamena's sobs slowly turned to sniffles as she composed herself enough to speak before her grandmother.
Bellamina is dead, Grammy.
No, you did that wrong. It's like this. Bellamina's dead, Grammy.
The musical. Pinkamena joked a little.
Yes, I know, dear. It's a fact we must all deal with now, Grammy said solemnly. We all have done our share of mourning, and we shall forever mourn her loss. But your tears seem to hide something more, my child. They seem to hide more than just your loss.
Get over it. It was Pinkamena's fault in the first place, actually.
Obviously.
Yes. Pinkamena rubbed her eyes as she sniffed, looking away from her grandmother, burying her head into Octavia's coat.
"I'm never throwing another party as long as I live," she sobbed.
"Oh, child, why would you say such a thing? You know we love your parties, and you love to throw them at people in the face," Grammy Pie said.
"Assault him with cake!"
Surprised at the sudden words from her granddaughter.
"My party got Bellmina killed."
You said that wrong.
She sobbed, the words out into Octavia's coat. Octavia did her best to try and comfort the filly. Their grandmother looked a little sad, but closed her eyes as she seemed to understand.
"My dear Pinkamena, if nothing else, you should continue to throw parties." She spoke softly, but truly.
Pinkamena said. Pinkamena and Octavia said in unison as they both turned to look at their grandmother.
"You see, dear, Pinkamena, your sister loved your parties. She truly had fun at them. Sometimes all she would talk about was how much fun she had at your last party." Grammy Pie chuckled softly to herself as she remembered. "Which is why I'm telling you, continue to throw your parties, child, in honor and in memory of our sister. Your sister will not want..."
Our sister?
Your sister will not want to live.
That's an interesting family.
Yes. The sister would not want to live the rest of your life being afraid and crying. She'd want you to see you smiling for the rest of your days. Grammy Pie's smile were the words she spoke were the truth.
"But," Pinkamena sniffed as she tried to comprehend her grandmother's words, being only a filly as she was. "But the world is so scary, Grammy. How can I have a smile in it?"
Get over it, man. It's simple.
Go Joker! That's how.
"Simply smile, or simply, my child," she chuckled softly, "you have to laugh your fears away."
Laugh? Pinkamena asked curiously. You know, like, ha ha ha, I just killed that person.
You know, like, ha ha ha, you're a gay faggot.
Ha ha ha, the cops are coming.
I shot them all. Continue.
It's your line.
Oh. It was a lesson she remembered often from her childhood. Her grandmother would often visit her and teach her how to laugh at her fears, stand up to the shadows and the idea of monsters, and to laugh her fears away. She could face anything the world would throw at her so long as she had the inner strength to laugh when the day was over.
She had forgotten why her grandmother had repeated the lessons so often to her in her memories before. She had just thought it was because she had been afraid of the dark as a filly. She knew now that it was because of something much deeper.
A small smile crept onto her face as she remembered all the memories she had forgotten now. What? The good memories, the bad ones, the ugly ones, the beautiful ones, and the ones over there in the corner that are gay. She had locked them all away to keep them happy, or to keep herself happy, to try and keep Bellamina's wishes true. The musical. She hadn't been all ready to accept the memories into her heart as fact.
She carefully left the last of the rooms that contained her memories. She could feel the slow rhythmic beats of her heart that resonated loudly through her. A smile was on her face as she remembered her sister fondly.
So, there's just one last thing to do then, she said as she looked to the door at the end of the hallway. She slowly walked towards it, her resolution holding firm in her heart. She knew what she had to do now.
She opened the door, stepping out.
Outside the door, she saw 4 torches lit around an open area. A pathway was lit for her leading to it. A fence was placed along the path in the areas she couldn't go.
Arena.
Anywhere else.
Am I the only one thinking Minecraft when I heard torches?
Anyone else thinking Minecraft when I heard a fence?
That too.
Just a fence.
Right
there.
Yeah. Torches, fence, pathway, all things you could easily make in Minecraft.
Minecraft, now the musical.
Dun dun. I don't think Random Encounters has done that yet.
Continue.
She gently put her lantern away as she walked towards the center of the arena. She could feel small tremors shaking through the world as she walked.
As she reached one side of the arena, from the ground on the opposite side, the slender pony emerged from the ground. He stood tall over her, his presence still bearing down.
I just randomly imagined that large monster again being her opponent in the arena.
Wither Boss activated.
Okay, so... But she wasn't afraid this time.
I finally understand now, Pinky said softly, shaking her head slowly before looking at the slender pony with a smile. My fear of your presence, your stature over me, your very existence. You're the colt, aren't you? The slender pony just stood there, unchanging from Pinky's words. Well, you're not him exactly, but you're my image of him. She closed her eyes and smiled, which means I'm not afraid of you anymore.
The slender pony began to walk towards her, every step seeming to echo across the arena. Pinky opened her eyes as she watched the pony walk towards her. Her mouth began to quiver as she saw him getting closer. She felt the haze beginning to hit her mind, the phonograph letting out its static.
She stood firm where she was, remembering fondly the words of her grandmother, the memories of her younger sister, of her friends back in Ponyville, of the fun she'd had throughout her life thanks to the help of everyone she's ever known gave her. All of them helped her live a life she could say she was proud of.
The slender pony stood a few feet from her, but the haze he brought to her mind began to fade. Her quivering mouth puckered up for a moment before a soft sound came from it.
Huh?
It started off low, as it gained its footing inside of Pinky.
Heh. Heh.
The confidence grew in her with each sound that came out of her, the haze lifting, the static of the phonograph becoming more quiet. She was laughing. She was laughing at the fear that that this whole town had brought upon her, just so that she could become strong enough to face her fears. She laughed, she giggled, she snorted, she chuckled. It felt like it had been a lifetime since she had last let out a laugh. She let out so many tears that had been pent up for years, so many pains and torments she had kept inside. For the first time in a long, long while, she laughed with all of her heart.
A bright light shone from her neck as a golden necklace with a blue balloon gem appeared. Her laughter continued as the light from the necklace made the slender pony jump back, letting out a shrilling cry as it seemed to hurt him.
The entire arena began to shake with a gigantic tremor as it began to fall apart. All the scenery around her began to fall into the bottomless pit that lay beneath them. The entire world was crumbling and shattering around them.
The slender pony let out another painful roar as he dissolved back into the ground, disappearing from Pinky's sight.
She calmed her laughing enough so that she could speak.
I won't forget you, Mr. Colt, and I don't think I can ever truly forgive you for what you did, but I can move on now. She closed her eyes as she smiled brightly. The golden necklace around her neck shined brightly as it shot a beam of light forward, hitting the air before forming into a door of light. The necklace then vanished to wait for the next time it would be needed.
It's time for me to head home. For real this time. Pinky smiled happily as she walked through the door of light, the last of the world crumbling away behind her.
To be concluded.
Yes.
Just so you guys know, this is not the end. There are multiple endings, and we'll do all of those in a reading. And then there's offshots, yes. There's the sequel, there's the prequel, there's the after prequel that was before the sequel that was made after the prequel of sequels.
Wow, I didn't know it was quite that complicated.
Yeah, there's a lot. I'm gonna stretch. I still have that snow globe.
You still have the snow globe?
I'm dangling it.
Well, I still have an empty bowl of ice cream.
Whoa! I still have a box of chicken and a biscuit.
And a bottle of water that's partially drained.
And 5 bottles of water, each containing water from probably 2 to 3 years ago.
And 2 empty bottles of water.
And a laptop that I'm going to pick up now and throw against the wall.
And a magic sword.
Kiss.
That may or may not actually have any magical properties.
Warning, magic may not be fully implemented yet.
Yes, exactly.
I'm just looking up at the fanfiction poster, and it's Pinky hugging Rainbow Dash, and I'm just like, yeah.
For me, it's Fluttershy.
Oh, is it the one where she's like holding her butt in the air, and it's just like, eh.
Yeah, holding her butt in the air, sniffing at Angel.
He's like, eat me. And then there's Derpy, and she's all like, word. And then there's Twilight, and she's all like, I'm a book nerd. And then there's or Rainbow Dash spitting what looks to be seminal fluid at Applejack, and she's like, oh, I'm having fun. And then there's Applejack and Rarity doing snuggly times. And then there's Applejack sitting in a pile of apples. And then there's all of them tied to a rope crying.
They're having fun times.
And then there's Luna fishing. And then there's Fluttershy helping out the community by burning kids alive. And then there's Pinky sipping
in
on
her
the
bunny
soda.
fires.
And then there's Fluttershy, the masked hooded ninja person. And then there's a pony I don't recognize.
With bunny ears.
Who was that?
Isn't that Silver
It
Spoon?
looks like it. She doesn't braid her hair and she doesn't wear a bonnet. And then it looks like I don't know those two either. And then there's
there's a post in the background. It's your failure to i.e. his grandfather safe.
oh my god, it's Trixie. Oh my god.
Good for
Look at Sweetie Belle's face. She's all like, I'm so happy.
Yep.
Wow.
Then there's Pinky diving into the mirror pool.
How many are these?
Rainbow Dash with like massively colored mane.
Hold on, how many of the are these? Oh, there we go.
I have no
Probably
idea.
20. Alright.
Huh. And there's a source button.
There is? Oh, sweet.
So you could include this somewhere.
Yarr.
For no
Go to
apparent reason.
FimFiction and click the arrows.
Or maybe it's so you could like add your image to the thing or something.
That'd be pretty
I
cool.
have no idea. I'm just imagining like
Bellamina the
all
musical.
the like clop pictures.
Oh, that'd be hilarious.
Rule 34.
Rule 43 and a half.
But yeah, I'm still clicking on them and I'm not back at the beginning again.
Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming.
I'm back around.
Back.
Didn't count though. Let's see, what does the source say? Oh, the source takes you to where the image is from.
Yes. Alright. I think
And we were recording that entire time, weren't we?
we're totally keeping this in. This is the after party.
Yeah!
Yeah, boy.
It's a party. Secret but fun.
Oh, I'm getting up.
Okay.
Well, alright. That's it for today, folks. Tune in next time for Bellamina the Musical, featuring Mr. Who was it? I completely forgot. The Colt.
Mr. Colt.
Yeah, the Colt. And, Pinkamena.
Pinky.
The evil one, though. Because she's a much better actor.
Yes. And she enjoys cupcakes far more.
Warning, there will be a lot of stabbing. Just throwing that out there.
And maybe some, like, cupcakes.
Yeah,
Here
that'll be
and there.
delicious.
Of course, not referencing any fan fiction.
No. Alright.
So, see ya.
Goodbye.